He's one of our favorite writers covering the NFL, and we figured, you know what? We are 9 weeks away from the season starting right now. Joining us back again here on the Rich Eisen Show is senior NFL writer from ESPN, Bill Barnwell. How you been, Bill?
Hey, Rich. That just occurred to me when you said that it's 9 weeks away.
Yes, sir.
That's staggering. I feel like we're months away until we get to like August. Then I'm suddenly in panic mode because the season's about to start.
Why would that panic you, Bill? Why does that panic you? Why would you be panicked?
So much work. I got spreadsheets to update. I got to learn about all these players who are entering the league. You know, like it's one thing to know about, okay, you got to know the core guys, and everyone knows the core guys. But to me, I got to make my money on the back of the roster. I got to know who that third string safety is for the Cincinnati Bengals. And so I have to figure out all this stuff, at least for the season starts. So I always say I'm going to start in February or March.
Yes.
And realistically, I always start right around training.
Okay, so then that's an August thing. So I guess the July thing is you're going to go after the core guys. You wrote a terrific piece about MVP candidates in the NFL this year. I'll give you the floor. Who are your MVP candidates in the NFL for a season that starts 9 weeks from this very day, Bill Barnwell?
Okay. So, I mean, we can start with the obvious one, right?
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes, always going to be the favorite, just because, you know, of course, the numbers are going to be there. And the thing that comes to mind here, the thing that comes up with a bunch of these guys I'm going to mention here, is that we're moving to a 17-game season. And so suddenly, all these records that might have been in play in a typical year are really in play now because we're looking at that extra game. Suddenly, we might have the first 2,000-yard receiver in NFL history in 2021. We have a better chance of that happening than we had in prior years. We might have Patrick Mahomes set the passing record. We might have a running back like Derrick Henry set the rushing record. So I think if you're a record setter, if you're a record setter at one of those spots, I think that gives you an edge, an opportunity to be an MVP candidate. Maybe in a typical year that might be harder. So Mahomes is the favorite, but then you go down the list. Someone like a Derrick Henry. You know, last year, 2,000 yards, didn't really sniff MVP candidacy, but if he could top Eric Dickerson's record, and he has a better shot this year than he had maybe in years past, I think the field opens up a bit. Or if someone, let's say someone gets to 25 sacks. Let's say, someone like a TJ Watt or a Darius Smith has that great season, gets that extra game, and not only sets the sack record, but blows away the sack record. To me, I think that 17th game really opens up the field for possible MVP picks in the NFL this year.
Okay, and now who's 1A for you then, if it is not Mahomes? Because you know the way it works.
1A.
You know the way it works, Bill, is that after a while, NFL media that votes on this sort of thing, I still don't get a vote on this sort of thing because I'm an NFL employee. The Associated Press thinks that I'm biased, or that like Roger Goodell is going to whisper in my ear the one time I am actually in his presence in a calendar year how to vote, even though he's never told me a damn thing to say in my career. I'm now off my soapbox. But you know the way that this thing works, Bill, is that people get bored. Like, all right, we already done that. Like, we don't have to do it again. So give me a 1A, 1B, 1C here for you in that regard.
1A, 1B, 1C. Right. I will go with. Let me give you 3 tiers of guys. Let me give you a favorite with Mahomes. I think right up there. Boring pick, but Tom Brady. I mean, a guy who's still playing at a high level. We saw what Peyton Manning a few years ago in Denver. His first season, very good. Some ups and downs, but by the end of the year was kind of clicking on all cylinders. The playoffs were a bit of a mess, unlike Brady. But year 2, that was one of the best seasons of Peyton's career. Even at the end of his career, won an MVP. I think Tom Brady could have that kind of season in Tampa now that he's more comfortable in the offense. Everybody's coming back from last year's team. You get Antonio Brown for a full season, he could suddenly be. I think a guy who, even though we know he's a traditional favorite, could get that one last MVP opportunity this year. Second tier, I'm going to go with the guy you were playing us in with, Kyler Murray. I mean, a guy who was a hot candidate last year.
He was.
And after that Bills game, after that Hail Mary, I think everybody was talking about Kyler Murray as an MVP candidate, but then second half of the year, some injuries, Cardinals kind of broke down. His candidacy sort of fell apart, but we know he has that upside. For me, it's just, can he put that together for 17 games? Can he stay healthy? Can the players around him stay healthy? And can the Cardinals win the NFC West? Because usually, realistically, you have to win the division for you to win MVP. And then I think the long shot, and I don't know what you guys think about this. Let me know how you feel. But Jameis Winston, a guy who we know. I mean, obviously, he has some problems. We know that he is a guy who can turn the ball over 5 or 6 times in a game if you give him the opportunity. But, man, I love the weapons around him with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. It's a dominant offensive line when those guys are healthy up front. It's the one thing the Saints really did not get rid of this year is they really kept that core of the offensive line together. And then Sean Payton, I mean, a guy who is maybe one of the 2 or 3 best minds in all of football in creating an offense. I have to think Jameis Winston, assuming he starts, which, again, is not a guarantee, I have to assume Jameis Winston is going to look a lot different from the guy we saw in Tampa. And if that's the case, and they can win the NFC South, I think he could post some incredible numbers, and that could be a guy who nobody's thinking about right now. But for me, kind of a long shot MVP candidate there.
Bill Barnwell here on the Rich Eisen Show. If Jameis Winston wins the MVP of the NFL in 2021, if he is that guy, that would mean the Saints would have to probably get a 12, 13, maybe 14-win season in a 17-game schedule. And then I guess, Brockman, we'd have to take bets on which member of the NFL media would be first to call Drew Brees a system quarterback. You know, like
I gotta guess.
You know, I mean, that would be wild, Bill. That would be totally wild. But I understand how prolific he was in Tampa, you know, and all the interceptions. You would assume he would cut those down. And earlier on in the in the show here before you joined, I had 5 shrug emoji teams for the NFL season where, you know, you just don't know. They could be playoff worthy and go on a playoff run or wind up choosing in the top half of the draft in Vegas next year. And I was thinking of putting the Saints as one of those teams, but because you just don't know at that quarterback spot. But I just think that offensively and defensively, they are so rock solid, terrific that Winston may just be plugged into that and have the best year of his career. You know, I really think so.
I mean, look at what Sean Payton's done over the past couple of years with Drew Brees hurt. I mean, it's been Teddy Bridgewater looking really impressive with that Saints team. It's been Taysom Hill, you know, not being Drew Brees by any means, but they're winning games with Taysom Hill at quarterback. To me, I think if you give Sean Payton an average quarterback, or maybe even a little worse than average quarterback, and a competent defense, I was going to say he's going to win you 10 games in a 16-game season. I don't know what that means anymore, but he can win you 11 games in a 17-game season, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be a winning coach. And I think that the Saints did lose some talent this offseason. I think you have to be realistic about that. But the core of this team, outside of the quarterback situation, is still there. And I think that, you know, you look at what he's done over the past couple of years, he's won games even without Drew Brees. So, you know, I think they don't really have that floor to me. They don't have that floor of, we're going to be a top 10 team picking in this year's draft. I could see them being, you know, 9-8, 8-9, maybe having an up and down season with Jameis or Taysom Hill at quarterback. But I can't imagine them going like 5-12 or 6-11. They just don't. You know, to me, I think Sean Payton's such a good coach that he sort of locks you in for 7 wins to even begin with.
Bill Barnwell here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior NFL writer for ESPN. 9 weeks until the season kicks off, just on this very day for the NFL 2021 campaign. There's one name that I don't believe we've talked about yet, or we haven't mentioned in the MVP possibility, and that's, I think, the hottest candidate that a lot of people are jumping on right now, and that's Matthew Stafford of the Rams and the situation that he's been put into. The podcast that my colleague at the NFL Media Group, Peter Schrager, does with Rams coach Sean McVay for Simmons Ringer, had Kyle Shanahan on this week, and it was quite a conversation that they had where Shanahan was grinding tape on Stafford, and he found out that Stafford went to the Rams, and he kind of, you know, I think he cleaned it up for the podcast. I think it caused him to work a little blue wherever he was in the room when he learned about it, because he's so into Stafford. So what do you think of all that, Bill?
I'm intrigued. And I'll tell you what, the thing I worry about with the Rams is not really Matthew Stafford's ability. I really believe that he is an upper echelon quarterback with the right pieces around him. And we think with the Rams, that receiver, hey, you can't argue, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers, you figure playing a bigger role in the backfield. There's a lot of talent around Matthew Stafford, but same issue he had with the Lions is that are people going to be able to protect him? I mean, that Rams offensive line, not very good the past couple of years. They're relying heavily on Andrew Whitworth, who to me is one of the most underrated players in the NFL over the past 20 years, a guy who's, been an upper echelon left tackle approaching 40. I mean, it's not Tom Brady, but it's pretty close in terms of, you're counting on this guy to be the guy he was years before, and maybe he will be, and that's great if he is, but if he's not, there's no plan B for the Rams. That offensive line, to me, is a problem. And you think about the defense, well, Brandon Staley left. He was an excellent defensive coordinator, turned around that team. They did lose a bunch of pieces in the secondary. Jalen Ramsey's still there, but a couple new starters there in the secondary. And this is a team that does not have a lot of cap space, a lot of draft capital to work with. So they haven't been able to do very much in terms of adding talent to this roster. So to me, when I think about what an MVP has to do, number one, put up great numbers. I think Matthew Stafford can do that. Number two, stay healthy. Matthew Stafford has had some injury issues the past couple of years. A tough guy. I mean, no one's arguing his toughness, but just at some point, you get hit a lot, you're going to get injured. And number three, when it comes to winning the division, I kind of think the Rams are in the same spot they were a year ago. Granted, they did, put up impressive season, but I can see the offense improving a little bit with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, but the defense simultaneously taking a step backwards. So to me, I think Matthew Stafford's a viable pick. I could see him getting better, putting up big numbers, but there are other guys I like a little more than Matthew Stafford when it comes to that sort of, those hot candidates. Like someone like a Baker Mayfield, I like more maybe than a Matthew Stafford.
Bill Barnwell here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's have some fun here, Bill, because we just talked about that Kyle Shanahan soundbite on Sean McVay, Peter Schrager's pod, talking about how he was frustrated to hear that the Rams got Matthew Stafford because he was grinding tape on Stafford when he heard about Stafford going to the Rams. Begs the question, what were the Niners doing grinding tape on Stafford? Now, that whole situation has been resolved because they got Trey Lance now. So, my question for you, that's the setup, is how many teams in the NFL do you think would cough up their current plans, regardless of who's there, at quarterback to acquire Aaron Rodgers? How many teams do you think there would be? Like, let's walk through it here. Literally, if you want to go team by team, we can. If you want to throw a number out there that you think, go for it. How would you want to answer that question? I'll give you the floor on that.
Let's go division by division.
Go for it.
Let's go division by division. I think it's the easiest way to do it.
Great.
AFC East, I don't think the Bills are throwing Josh Allen out the door. I think they have to at least have a conversation, but I think they're fully in on Josh Allen. Everyone else, I mean, the quarterbacks are getting tossed out. They're literally, it's Lane Kiffin on the, on the tarmac at LAX in terms of those guys being left.
Even like the Jets, even Bill, the Jets who choose a kid second overall, they choose that capital. They'd cough him up for Aaron Rodgers this late in his career. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there are a lot of situations, where, sure, you'd take Aaron Rodgers over a raw rookie, but you've made plans. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm throwing in here into this mix.
Yeah.
You think they would?
Here's the thing. I know I grew up in New York. I know a lot of Jets fans. I think if I polled 100 Jets fans, to me, the Jets fans I know, maybe they're not the most accurate representation, but I feel like they're pretty hardcore Jets fans. I feel like 90 of them would happily say, you know what, we haven't had a quarterback like this for 30 years. And Aaron Rodgers might only have 3 or 4 years left. I'd rather live in that world for 3 or 4 years and go with Aaron Rodgers than take another shot at Zach Wilson after we've seen, Sam Darnold not take that step forward, not be the guy who we were expecting after we took him in the top 3.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, it's not like he's coming off of a good year. I mean, he was the most valuable player in the National Football League last year. To me, I think even if you have a prospect who you think is a sure thing, I think Trevor Lawrence, I probably wouldn't do it. But I think anyone below that tier where it's not, okay, we think he is, a bona fide superstar for the next 10 years, and most of the league agrees with us. I think you have to go for Aaron Rodgers.
What about the Browns? Do you think they'd swap out Baker for Aaron Rodgers right now?
Oh, boy. I mean, whenever I suggest the Browns might make an upgrade at quarterback, Browns fans get very angry at me. Okay. And I understand that Baker Mayfield is the guy who's going to ruin that jersey. I mean, the guy who is going to cause Browns fans to take that jersey with the 36 names of backup quarterbacks on it or the messes they've had at quarterback and cause them to throw it out because they finally have their guy in Baker Mayfield. But this is a guy, Baker Mayfield, who a year ago we were talking about as a guy who might get replaced, a guy who was a mess, a guy who, just capitulated under the pressure, capitulated behind a terrible offensive line. And last year, I thought he was very impressive. When things got right scheme, right offensive line, right coach, he was much better. But Aaron Rodgers is a scheme-transcendent player to me. And I think a guy who's been able to prove that over the course of the last 10 years. Baker Mayfield, obviously much younger. I don't know that he's that scheme-transcendent player. I don't know if Baker Mayfield's going to be able to make magic happen when things aren't perfect for him in that offense. So to me, with a roster that I think is championship caliber around the quarterback position, yeah, I would make that move every day.
No kidding. What about what are some other teams that might be fun here to just throw in your direction? Because I don't think the Bengals would, right? I mean, they love Burrow. That they wouldn't make that move. I mean,
What
Rodgers.
about the Chargers?
No way. No chance.
No way. You wouldn't do it.
No chance. Justin Herbert's my unicorn, and don't touch him.
You don't even have a conversation about it?
No, I don't have a conversation about it. I do not.
Wow. Okay.
I do not. No, I do not. No, Herbert, I don't touch. I don't touch Herbert. Do you touch Dak? What about the Cowboys? Let's have some real fun here. What do you think?
Oh, boy. Cowboys and Aaron Rodgers. We're just trying to get trying to throw those eyeballs. I don't blame you. I mean, I love Dak Prescott. To me, Dak Prescott is a top 7, top 8 quarterback in the NFL. Maybe some other people don't see him at that level. And we're just throwing the salary cap issues aside here. I mean,
of course.
This is just,
no. Of course. Well, I mean, I think it might be apples to apples, Bill. I mean, with what Rodgers would want, I would imagine. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not too far off.
Would I make this trade? I would rather have Rodgers, I think, but that's the one where I feel like I would have the longest conversation about it. I think for the Cowboys, I think you see Rodgers' upside. And Dak, I mean, I think Dak is a very high floor quarterback. Like, I think he's consistently very good. He's been healthy before, of course, last year, that freak ankle injury. I think he's gotten better over the course of his career. But I don't know that Dak has that sort of, I'm going to go on the field and win the game, and there's nothing you can do about it mode that Aaron Rodgers does. To me, I think the upside for Aaron Rodgers is the absolute, undoubted best player in football. We've seen that 3 times now over the course of his career. Dak might not have that upside in him. Dak is incredible, like a super talented quarterback, but might not be the best quarterback in football at any time. So to me, I think you have to chase that if you don't think your guy has that. And to me, I would make that trade, but I would be a little petrified that Dak Prescott's a lot better than people are giving him credit for.
Last one for you, Bill Barnwell. Who do you think the MF'er was that Brady was referring to on the shop? Who do you think?
I'm beginning to think it was me. I feel like every quarterback in the NFL has said,
no,
it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm fine.
No.
I think it's the Bears. I think it was Mitch Trubisky. And I may not be the case, but I feel like the Bears are the team where I sat there last year and I thought, man, you have a great defense. You have a very talented receiver in Allen Robinson. You're maybe playing for you're maybe coaching or GMing for your jobs. Go ahead and get Tom Brady. Give this a shot. You have the pieces around him. Try to make the money work. They didn't do it. And to me, I think, Mitch Trubisky, no disrespect, that guy who has, pretty better than maybe people have given him credit for over the past year or two, but a guy who I think everyone saw last year, and we thought, okay, the Bears are really doing this with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. I kind of figured that Tom Brady would have been a much better option for them. So to me, I'd go Bears.
I went Titans and Tannehill. Bill.
Really? I think Tannehill's good.
No, I know that. Of course he is. And I this is not the way I view Tannehill, and maybe not be Brady either. But I thought the Titans were in on it. I'm trying to sleuth it. You remember when Vrabel was caught FaceTiming with Edelman and Brady at a Syracuse basketball game before the pandemic, and that I think the Titans were in on it, and they decided to stick with Tannehill and pay him, and instead of going with Brady. I think that's the where I don't know. The Bears just seem to be too pat. You know what I mean? And you might be right in the long run. I just don't know if Brady wanted to go to the freezing cold of Lambeau. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
Not that Tennessee is balmy in December, but I just don't. I don't know, man. That's the way I went with that one. That's the way.
Let me say this. If there was a LeBron-esque special, a decision-esque special,
yes,
where I had to pay $60, and at the end of it, Tom Brady would reveal who the MF'er was, I would pay $50 for that in a heartbeat.
Well, we know who the host would be for that because it'd be the same host, probably. You know. By the way, I don't know if you're aware, Bill. Perfect full circle. That happened 11 years ago today. That's decision.
Crazy.
I know.
Oh wow.
Thanks for the chat, Bill. This is fun. Let's do it again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Rich. Anytime.
You got that's Bill Barnwell right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.